Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the number one source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.
Hey, beautiful people, this is Freedom Fighter. Welcome to Saturday Night Dialogues. It is July the 12th, 2025. We have a jam-packed call tonight. We're going to jump into it. Tonight's updates, we're going to get into Iraq and their RV update. We're going to talk about the latest report by the IMF on the IQD rate and what Iraq is doing and what they need to do next in order for them to revalue the dinar. Then we'll get into Vietnam and their negotiating of their tariffs and how that will lead to the revalue of the Vietnamese dong. And then we'll tie it all into how everything is absolutely connected to everything. So let's get into some prayer and get this party started. Father God, we thank you. Always thank you. We humble ourselves before you and give you all the honor and the glory. And we thank you for allowing us to be a part of this momentous occasion and this opportunity of a lifetime, the greatest transfer of wealth. We thank you for each and every person, including myself, that was able to define the reality and the facts related to this opportunity. That being through Goldilocks and through Wiley. We just appreciate, Father God, for guiding me to all of these wonderful people. And I'm glad that I can be a vessel for you in helping as many people as I can. We ask that you cover every last person that is listening to this call, no matter where they are. We ask that you open their minds, their hearts, and prepare them for what they will be able to hear tonight and prepare them for this journey. In your precious name, amen. All right, folks, real quick, some quick announcements. The Goldilocks QFS Dialogues Room, it's open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's Monday through Friday. That's where you can come and get the 8 steps that you're hearing many people every day now in the hundreds that are sharing their bank stories, their updates on establishing relationships. This Goldilocks QFS Dialogues Room is ground zero. Also for where we break down Goldilocks articles and help people to prepare for the RV. It doesn't cost you anything but your time. And if you would love to be a part of the journey, be the next bank story, preparing your relationships with your bankers, you can click the link at the top of the description and join the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues Room. Then we have D's Room, where D drops articles related to the global financial system. And then we have the Crypto Finance Newsroom, anything related to crypto. That's where you go for your questions. And then the Goldilocks Global Banking News, which is your daily podcast, where we break down Goldilocks articles into a podcast. And so much is happening. You do not want to miss any episodes. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel and hit your notifications so you don't miss anything. Things are heating up. You don't want to miss not one simple thing. Now, we have 2 amazing folks tonight that is going to share their updates. We're going to have Trish, and then we're going to have Gratitude Z. The amazing Peculiar Ram is going to read our articles, and then Mike N is going to summarize one of our articles. Next Saturday, on the 19th, we have Tyrone, who's going to share his bank story, and then the Awesome Blues, who has jumped out the box quick, fast, in a hurry, and already has her bank story within a short period of time, who's going to share her bank story as well. Let's see. If you think I'm talking fast, I'm doing that on purpose because we have very detailed articles that we have to go over tonight, and I want to get to them as quickly as I can. Trish, are you here? If you can, raise your hand. I didn't see you, but I did see Gratitude Z. Trish, if you can raise your hand if you're here. If not. Okay. Gratitude Z, if you can raise, there you go. Gratitude Z coming right to you. You can unmute Gratitude Z. Okay. Gratitude Z, you can try it. Unmute now. If you can get it.
Okay, yeah, I figured it out. Sorry.
You got it. You got it. How you doing, young lady?
I'm good, thanks.
I was wondering. I said, okay, you were able to raise your hand. I said, if she raises her hand, she'll be able to find the mute button. So we got it. Awesome. Thank you for coming on tonight. And I know your story is going to inspire so many. Your story, everyone's story is unique. Yours is unique as well, but I would love for you to share it. You posted into the room a few weeks ago a phenomenal update. You had a pleasant surprise when you met with your wealth manager. I'm sure you'll share that with us as well. But how long have you been in the room? It's been a while, but how long?
Since before everything switched over with the room.
Okay.
I don't know. So
That's okay.
I was following all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And then kind of started. So I'm guessing over a year.
Okay.
Maybe year and a half. It seems to just blend together.
Yeah. I remember you. It's just you just recently.
I've been kind of sitting by saying, that's a little scary. I don't know what I'm going to say. My husband's not all into any of this so much, so I was holding back. But a lot of people sharing their stories, and I figured, what do I have to lose? Just go and talk with somebody. So what I did was I went into one of the tier 1 banks and just asked. I actually got a card because the gentleman was really busy, and I got his card, and then I called, and he called me back, and I made an appointment. We did a Zoom call. He asked me, some questions, and I just gave him the answer of expecting funds, whatever you guys told me. I just said that.
You're not at liberty.
Yes, not at liberty to really say, but I just want to be ready. I want to be prepared. I want to start getting educated. So he was happy to do that, set the appointment, and I did a Zoom call with it. He was a private client banker, and then he brought in his private wealth manager was on the call. So they're both on the call. And I started, and I had sent Wiley's questions. And so the private wealth manager went through all those questions with me. We talked a little chit chat at first. And so I was just listening, and I asked a couple more questions and told him a little bit more about what some of my goals were. And then I asked about, do I need to set up a bank account? Would that be a good idea? And they said, yes, that would be a great idea. Then the private client banker started talking to me and mentioned, the minimum that a big time private like client would need to have in an account. And also, and the first words out of his mouth, I couldn't believe it, was, well, there's the benefits with having that account is that there will be no fees on foreign exchange. And I was like, that's interesting. No fees on wire transfers up to $250,000 per day. I'm like, wow, he's really starting right out of the gate with these huge things. And I'm just telling him, and he said it twice with and it was just interesting. I said, okay, that's great.
I have a quick question for you before you continue. Yeah. When he said that to you, what if you can put yourself back in the moment when he told you twice without you initiating the conversation,
right?
He told you twice that the account would be that they could facilitate foreign currency exchange. What came to your mind? Do you remember?
What came to my mind was, how does he know that how would he know to even say that? I guess, you know,
you didn't know what to think.
No, I really didn't know what to say. I didn't want to say anything about it because I don't, I just.
It was very smart on your part, but okay. That's what I wanted to. I wanted you to kind of go back in that moment at that time because I wanted you to share, because what I like I mentioned in the beginning is that everyone's situation is unique. Yours is very unique. Some wealth managers just boom brought it up to some members. Some it took several conversations and the relationship to establish and build before it came out. But for you, it was right. It was like, okay, let's just kiss on the first date. so okay. I know you're married. I didn't want to say, but I hope hubby's not. Okay, no. It was your husband. You and your hubby on your first date. But yeah. All right, go ahead and continue.
So we finished up the conversation with another appointment on the 24th of this month. And where the private wealth manager wants to go more in depth of our goals and how to set things up, and just he just wants more information and more and for me to kind of, I guess, so I'm a little nervous about it because I'm like, well, I don't know exactly what I mean. I know the things that I want to do, but everything's not there yet. So
right. It's very simple. You're just going to focus on your goals. All you're doing is this meeting with him. You're just continuously further establishing your relationship. And if the question comes up about where the source of the funds are, you can see if at that time the relationship you feel as if is getting to a point where you might want to divulge that. He's already mentioned it. I would do and I'll bring Wiley, you want to jump in here? What I would do, I would simply ask him, well, you did mention foreign currency. Can you share a little bit more? I would just open up and ask questions related to the topic if that's what you want to do, but don't only allow that to be your only topic.
Right.
Make sure your goals, like you said earlier about your goals can never be limited. You want to continue on that because you want them to talk about how they can help you achieve their goals, and then incorporate it somewhere in there. Yeah. You can ask questions about foreign currency. Whatever questions you may come up with, you can start asking those questions. You don't have to get into specifics on this currency, that currency.
Right.
Just ask, questions. Wiley, you want to jump in here, my good man?
Yeah. Don't be worried about not what to ask him. The things you need to, like Freedom said, the focus on is, I want to retire. I'd like X amount to live on. I'm looking for generational wealth. I'd like to do some non-for-profit work or whatever that looks like. I'd like to start my own business. I'd like to do this project. These all give him the input he needs so he knows how to start building a plan and a structure for you and what that's going to look like around what your criteria is. What is it you're needing from him? Because he's not going to be able to do a mind read unless you start talking about these things with him.
Yeah, we did talk about retirement a little bit, but yeah, I do want to retire.
And he's gonna focus on that. How much do you need? What's gonna make you comfortable that you can walk away from that job you have? At 5,000 a month, 10,000 a month, 15,000 a month?
Yeah.
Tell them, because this gives them the parameters with what you're kind of thinking's coming back and what he may have to work with, that he's going to be able to do these things for you.
Okay. Great.
And as you grow in that, you're going to start talking more finite. You're going to start talking physical numbers. You know, he's already kind of opened the door for you. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to stick your foot in it.
Okay. All right.
The worst that could happen is you have to start over.
Right.
That's the worst.
Okay.
And I know
Thank
you
you.
don't want to do that, but
No.
that's the worst, right?
Okay.
But as he already opened the door, he said it twice. Step into it. Lean into this a bit, because he knows you don't know. He knows you're new at this,
Yeah.
and he knows you're nervous. They pick all that up. But
Yeah.
here's the thing: he wouldn't have got this far with you and restructured thing if he wasn't interested into helping you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
He would have shut you down, said, "Nope, we're not dealing with it next."
Yeah.
That's not what he said.
Oh.
He's like, "Yeah,
Wow.
there's zero charge on currency exchanges if you do them with this account."
Right.
Very interesting. Good to know. Hey, I got a 401k too. Are you able to work with that? I have a little bit of retirement funds. My husband has some. Well, he
Right.
doesn't believe, he doesn't, he's not into this just yet. But I'll bring him along when the time comes and want to work with him too and retire him. Start talking about these things
All
and
right.
let him
Okay.
be the guy that pulls your
Okay.
husband along,
All right.
not you.
Yes.
So then all you have to do is just be the individual that gets him to the meeting, and then let the banker and the wealth manager say, "Well, your wife's been in here talking to us. We understand this. We can do all of that." There's several ladies that drug their husband to these calls. Now their husbands are listening to the calls because the banker said, "Yeah, that's going to happen. Your wife's not crazy. Everything she's told you is true."
Right. That's awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Absolutely. So, young lady, how's it feel now after you've had this meeting and you're set now with your follow up? How did you feel afterwards? Like, was there a weight that was lifted off of your shoulders?
Yes. Absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm in the process. Like I'm,
Mm-hmm. You're
like this
ahead.
is real. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is and it's just it's so much better because I'm just more in control of what I can
Mm.
control, you know.
Right.
Somebody's in charge of their destiny now, no longer
Yeah.
waiting
That's
for
right.
somebody else with the anxieties of not knowing what's going to
Right.
transpire.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're captaining your ship.
Yes. Yes.
That's the empowerment.
Exactly.
Gonna do it.
Exactly. I'm gonna ask a question, sort of like what Wiley normally asks. Like, what was your plan before? I mean, I know you've been with us from the beginning. I know you're kind of hanging around. What was your plan before you took the steps?
It's funny because I didn't even, was the 800 number and all that stuff. What's the plan before? Because that's all there was. Like that's all there was. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what there's some 800 number, and you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
go to this some mysterious place, and you know, um,
Mm-hmm.
that was it, and
Mm-hmm.
which, yeah. Now that I look back on it,
Mm-hmm.
which probably was the reason why I was so kind of like, is this really going to happen? Like, how can this
Mm-hmm.
really happen like this?
So you're saying all of that anxiety came from lack of clarity from what subconsciously was not reality, what you were hearing all over Denarland.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And about how the whole system is going to change with this exchange rate. It makes so much more sense following this information that you guys share. That makes sense of how something could change.
Oh, okay. The
not
how.
Just a flip of some kind of switch. Too.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I was. Okay, so you're saying you have a clear understanding now of how the RV happens in the process, and not just some felonious flip of a switch
out there with all different kinds of. Well, if this over here happens, then this might happen, and this could happen. This is just better, clearer information, and following the process and all of the things involved. Yeah.
Right. Because you can see it, and you see, and you're able to follow, like you said, you're able to follow the process, but you're able to follow the verifiable facts from the actual sources that are involved with the RV globally, and you see the different pieces to the puzzle. Right. Whereas it's a global event, and there are many different pieces versus some elders sitting behind a curtain at a circular table, and they're just going to give the green light, and all of a sudden all the currencies are going to just switch because of the
put codes in. All that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good. Now, if you could share on that note, if you can share with anyone listening, if you can share with them anything that will come to your heart of how you may be able to inspire them. Because a lot of those people are listening to this call who were just like you with the anxiety and the confusion in guru land. If there's something you can share that may help one person just like you, what would that be?
I would just say you have nothing to lose by going and talking with, someone. This is something that is going to happen, and you want to be ready when it does. And I have so much less anxiety now because I know what I'm going to do, and where I know where I can go.
To exchange.
Yes, like that's huge.
Right.
For me. It's not like going to be some mystery where, oh, am I going to get the 800 number and how am I going to do that? And it's not even just totally about the exchange. Then what? I always had in my mind, like, okay, then what? You got all this money, but then what? Like,
after you exchange, what do you how are you?
A lot of people are going to get into trouble because they have no plan. They don't even know what the plan. They don't even know what their plan is, because all they're being told is like, hey, if you have this, they'll exchange it. Oh, but you got to do a project. Oh, and you got to put that money forward, and they're going to do this. Where? I've been asking for over 20 years to show me the white paper, show me the protocols, show me the rules, show me the guidelines. Can't be produced.
Right.
Well, why can't it be produced? If it's intel, that's intelligence. Intelligence is verifiable facts. Show them to me. I want to see them. It can't be done because they don't exist. However, you should be proud for yourself, Gratitude. You went to the banker. He opened the door. And he's saying, I know what you want to ask me. He was saying it. Because he wants to tell you. But you have to ask it. Okay. But you're asking the right questions. You're doing it the right way. Because you're not walking in peppering him with your trying to shine him on with a bunch of just nonsense.
Yeah.
Right.
You came in earnestly. You came in very genuinely. Hey, I want to be prepared. I want to do this. Can you help me? Here's my goals. Here's my ideas. Here's where I want to be.
Right.
He can work with that. But be proud of yourself that you took those first initial steps. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to not have your feet underneath you. I guarantee you a year from now, and you keep at this, you will be a force to be reckoned with, because you're going to have learned so much in that time. And you're going to be miles ahead of that person who has no plan after the exchange. Because they have no budget, no real idea of what it's going to take to go do anything because they're just waiting on somebody else who creates the anxiety for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a guy. You have an intel guy. You have a guy that can tell you everything you need to know. You don't need Freedom. You don't need Wiley. You don't need us. You have a guy. Go work it.
I will, but I still need you guys. So thank you.
We're glad we give you the motivation you needed to go forth and succeed. What I want to instill in you is be your own cheerleader and don't take no for an answer. Go big and just continue to grow in your own self.
Thank you. You're awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Congratulations, young lady. You're doing so amazing. We are proud of you.
Thanks, Freedom.
Yes. We're proud of you. And it's only going to get better from here. Are you going to interview other wealth managers as well?
I have another account at a tier 1 bank. So I think I may.
Okay.
I mean, I know you guys say that that's a smart idea. So
yes,
I trust that.
Yes.
Freedom, I just hear this background music of, I like the way you play that kissing game. That's what she's got going on right now.
Right. Exactly. Oh man. That is so awesome. And it's amazing.
Keep going, gratitude. Keep going.
It's amazing, Wiley, where this wealth manager just gave her an alley-oop. Just alley-oop. Here. This is no fees for currency exchange. She's like, huh? I didn't mention nothing about that.
and she didn't have to pull a Mrs. D and just say, I ain't paying no fees and no currencies.
Right. He just offered it up.
He's alley-ooping it there for you. Gratitude. Take it. Go for it. Winners want the ball.
Yeah.
All right.
But like Wiley said, all of these fictitious, felonious, so-called intel providers and their fake banker stories, you have your own banker.
Yeah.
Licensed fiduciary. Who's can and willing to exchange your currency and manage and grow your wealth.
Yes.
What guru do you need with their fake stories and their fake bankers? You don't need none of that. Like Wiley said, you're going to be at a point where you don't need, I know you want us, but you are empowered now to not need us.
Well, the banker's even going, yeah, if you have this account, no fees on that. He's telling you, yeah, we need to do this for you. Here's where you got to start. We got to get you that account. That's step one. Step one was you walking in. Step two was you getting that account, right?
Yeah.
And he's telling you exactly what you need to do because he knows enough. Listen, bankers aren't dumb. They've seen our questions. They've seen the questions I've done a million times. They know what's up. All right?
Yeah.
They know. They know people are being coached. All right? They know.
Yeah.
Go with it.
Okay.
Beautiful.
If it don't work, we'll pick you up. We'll brush you off. We'll help you get the next guy. But I don't think this guy's going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think so either. Yay.
And that way, when your husband comes in, the banker can say, man, gratitude here. This girl's sharp. Let me bring you up to speed, Mr. Gratitude. We got this set. You might want to start paying attention so you can get up to speed where your wife is.
That's right. I can see your husband. Your husband, he gonna come out of there, Wiley. Her husband gonna get down on his knee and he gonna propose to her again. He said, honey, let's renew our vows before this RV comes.
That was a joint account you set up, right?
Actually, no.
That's fun. Awesome. Congratulations. And of course, you. Yes, keep on as you're doing. You're so great. You're participating in the room. You will inspire thousands by sharing today and continue to keep us updated and sharing your love in the room. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. I saw Amazing Trish pop on, but I see she is gone. Trish, if you're here, raise your hand. If not, I see you were on, but then you are gone. So you might be in a bad area because you were on and then you popped off. If not, that's okay. And real quick, we're going to say a prayer for Peculiar Ram. She just sent a message that she was in a car accident. She was rear-ended. So I'm going to say a quick prayer for the lovely Peculiar Ram. Father God, we ask that you provide healing mercies upon Peculiar Ram. And if there were anyone else in the vehicle, she was just in an accident and on her way to the hospital, we ask that you allow your healing angels to surround her, cover her, protect her. And if there's any injuries, to make sure that, Father, she has a speedy and healthy recovery. And we ask that you cover her and her family and anyone and everyone that is affected, even the other party that also was in the accident. We ask that you cover and protect them. If there are any injuries, for any and everyone involved, to have healing virtues to flow upon them. In your precious name we pray. Amen. All right. Trish, I see that you came on. You got to be having technical difficulties. Maybe you got your handcuffs are on or something. But we're going to get into the call. I will read the articles. In fact, Mike N, if you can unmute, if you can unmute my good man, Mike N.
Hey, how you doing, Freedom?
Good, man. You doing all right?
I'm all right, brother. Good evening.
Cool. Good evening. Peculiar Ram was in an accident, and I see you here. You were going to summarize that Vietnamese article. If you have time and you're in a good place, maybe I'm gonna call an audible and see if you can help me out here. If not, I'll just go and read the articles.
Brother, I can definitely assist you. I'm actually pulling up to my destination now, so if you want to go ahead and pull up the first one, and I can jump in and I can help out.
Okay, appreciate it, beloved. All right, as we always know, like Peculiar Ram and Brunette Grand suggested, and they were right on the money when they said what we should do from this point forward is, for this particular article that came from within a leak within the Trump administration of the currency revaluation and what it was going to entail, how he was going to do it, what needed to be done. We're going to start off there. And my man Mike N, if you can be so kind, I just dropped it into the room. Knowing you might know this article by verbatim in your head. But if you can read this for the audience, we'll greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. First, I want to start to say prayers to Peculiar Ram. I hope that her and whoever was with her is okay, and I wish her a safe prayer to the hospital. Go ahead and start off. Currency revaluation is likely to be a priority for some members of the potential second Trump administration, mainly because of the viewpoint that an overhauled dollar contributes to the trade deficit, said one former Trump administration official, adding that Lighthizer and his team are primary advocates for that approach. But weakening the dollar could have other far-reaching consequences from sending consumer prices for imported products soaring, to inviting retaliation from other countries and threatening the dollar's role as a world reserve currency, which would undermine the U.S. sanctions as adversaries like Iran and Russia.
Boom. Currency revaluation, folks, is likely to be priority of the second Trump administration. And it will be fueled through an overvalued dollar, which contributes to the trade deficit. But weakening the dollar could have an overall far-reaching consequences. So currency revaluation, how? Through trade. How? Weakening of the dollar. I'm going to read this next one. my good man Mike, and then I'm going to ask you to the one that to follow this on Iraq and the World Trade Organization. You're going to read that one, folks. Here we go. Now we're going to start out with Iraq. As you all may be aware, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which is one of the top global financial agencies that are involved and responsible for the global transition into the new banking system. They are one of the international organizations, bottom line, responsible for the RV. They came out with a report. Let's call it an audit. What the International Monetary Fund does is they audit different countries such as Iraq, Vietnam, and others on an annual or every other year. They may do an audit of the country to determine where they're at financially and where they may need to be in order to have a stronger economy, or also in order to prepare for the new banking system. So that's the Article 4 consultation, which Goldilocks has written about many times and which we have talked about. So this past week, the IMF stated out from their report that the Iraqi dinar's rate of 1,300 IQD that's the rate right now, and they are projecting that 1,300 IQD rate will be the same for 2026. Now, naturally, for those that may not be aware, you will say, well, how is that possible? Really? The IMF, who is one of the major global agencies that is involved with the RV, is saying that Iraq's rate of 1,300 IQD will also be 1,300 next year, 1,300 IQD to $1 next year. Now, we're going to clarify that for you. But before we clarify that for you and let you know what the next steps are, for those of you that saw this report or you heard about this from the IMF, you should question anyone that's ever told you up until now that a rate of this amount and that amount has happened in Kurdistan. This rate, that rate happened in Reno. This rate, that rate is showing here. This rate, that rate. Oh, it's shown. You should begin to question yourself first, because we know the gurus don't allow, they don't have a platforms for you to question them. But you need to question yourself. All these rates that you were told that in the RVs happened in all these different places. Oh, but then there was a delay. Oh, the RV happened here. Oh, and there was a delay. The RV happened in, oh my God, the Chinese elders finally. Oh, and there was a delay. The IMF is telling you the rate. Right in the Goldilocks QFS dialogues room 3-4 times a day. We shared the link right to the CBI to show you so you can see the rate. But you mean to tell me the agency, the IMF, is telling you the rate is 1,300 IQD right now? Let's get to it. What it's stating is that the executive board of the International Monetary Fund issued a statement following the conclusion of their Article 4 consultation with Iraq. Those are fireworks if you guys hear it in the background. It states, quote, the CBI, Central Bank of Iraq, should be commended for the successful transition to the new trade finance system. The new what? Trade finance system, now fully managed by commercial banks. These are the international banks, folks, that the CBI is connected to, which is contributing to a reduction in the spread between the IQD's official rate and the parallel market rate. While commercial banks don't directly set official exchange rates, they can significantly influence the rates through trading activities in the Forex market. their buying and selling of currencies driven by customer demand, this is through supply and demand, will determine the exchange rate. Now let's get to it in layman's terms. It's clearly said from the CBI that the central bank should be commended for the successful transition to the new trade finance system. Remember, this is why Goldilocks has always said watch the water, because the value of currencies move through supply and demand as countries do what with each other? Trade. Now, the IMF's report, this audit, if you will, on Iraq, this was naturally before Iraq fully connects to the international new digital banking or trade system. This is before the U.S. digital asset regulations. This is before Iraq has accession to the World Trade Organization. So is this accurate? Of course it's accurate by the IMF what the IQD rate is. Is it accurate that what you've been told the rate is changed? No, those are just lies and popping off like the fireworks you hear in the background here. Lies, just popping off every weekend, every other day. Fireworks of lies, pop, pop, pop. And you just look up in awe, excited, and then you let down because you're not fully understanding what you've invested in and the process that goes into it. Just like you heard Gratitude Z speak of a few minutes ago. She doesn't have the anxiety anymore. She understands how the RV happens, the process of how the RV happens. Then she follows our 8 steps. As nervous as she was, she goes in there, she follows the steps, starts to establish a relationship, and the banker opens up and offers her the opportunity to exchange her currency at no fees. She didn't even bring it up. He did. But she has now that relationship. No longer has the anxiety, punch drunk from the guru foofiness. This is where many of you need to begin to really, I think that a lot of people don't take the investment serious because you didn't have to invest much. Oh, just a little bit, a couple of dollars, a couple $100 here, there, and the expectation to get millions in return. So you're not taking it serious. The laziness, because you didn't have to really put much out to get much back when the revalue happens. But what if all of what you've heard are false pretenses, lies about the rates and how the process of the RV occurs? Once you understand the process, you begin to establish relationships, your anxiety goes away. So, just so that you're aware, all this is telling you by the IMF is that, yes, at the moment, the rate is 1,300. This has not changed. There's no secret rates, back screen rates, and all these fake rates that you keep hearing. Those are I call them clickbait rates. That's just clickbait. You need to take this serious, folks. You must begin to take your investments serious. I know people are busy. You have lives, you have schedules. You got time for vacations. You got time to get your hair, your nails did. Time to go hang out with your friends. You should take the time to understand and know what you hold and prepare for this blessing that God is trying to bring to you. My man, Mike, now if you can, this next from the world, speaking of Iraq, folks, and the World Trade Organization, this is going to preface private sector and market economy of what Goldilocks is sharing of Iraq needs to move forward. And we're going to see Vietnam, same thing, private sector and market economy. My good man, if you could read this conclusion, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Conclusion. Iraq World Trade Organization accession process, including the 4th meeting in 2025. is likely to advance its transition toward a market economy by promoting trade liberalization, regulatory transparency, and private sector growth. However, achieving a full market economy will require sustained domestic reforms, political stability, and economic diversification beyond the scope of the World Trade Organization. While the process is a catalyst, the extent of the speed of Iraq's shift to a market economy depend on its ability to implement and sustain these reforms.
And these reforms that Goldilocks is referring to, this article that Goldilocks shared is from June the 16th. And this is not the first time Goldilocks has mentioned this. In order for Iraq to move into a market economy, these reforms that Goldilocks is referring to are reforms of which some of those reforms are mentioned in the IMF Article 4 consultation. Remember I said it's like an audit? And the audit is whereby there are things that Iraq has been doing and need to continue to do in implementing certain reforms, economic reforms, in order for them, for one, to gain accession into the World Trade Organization. And Iraq has done, in fact, they may have checked off all of the boxes and they have all the requirements to gain accession into the World Trade Organization. It's all about negotiation with them now. And also, it's most likely that they are also watching, meaning the World Trade Organization, and Iraq is watching the negotiations, the trade negotiations with all of these countries in the U.S. related to tariffs. Because all of those countries are also, majority of 122 countries plus, are members of the World Trade Organization. So where it talks about Iraq's accession to the World Trade Organization, it will liberalize their economy. It will boost their private sector growth and help them to achieve a full market economy. And we'll elaborate on that in a minute with Vietnam. But a market economy for Iraq is exactly what Vietnam is attempting to do, is to be recognized as a market economy. For Vietnam to be recognized as a market economy, they had to pass certain laws, change their constitution, which is they had to implement reforms so that they can eventually release the Vietnamese dong for the global market to determine the rate of the Vietnamese dong. That's why it would be considered a market economy when the global market, through supply and demand, will determine the rate. And here we have, with Iraq, ladies and gentlemen, once, as it is expected, that Iraq gains full accession to the World Trade Organization, that's where the private sector will begin to open up. And they will have a full market economy where the global markets will determine the value on the Iraqi dinar. So the accession to the World Trade Organization, again, the consultation by the IMF is before Iraq's accession into the World Trade Organization. But again, just one of you I know it's not going to be many, it might not even be a handful, but if just one of you begins to wake up to realize the International Monetary Fund publicly reports the current rate of the Iraqi dinar is 1,300. But you've heard all kind of rates for the last 5 months, 5 years, 10, 20 years. And all these supposedly dates that were pushed back. The can is supposed to be kicked down the road. The goalpost moved. Nah, the only goalpost is moved is the conference calls and that the gurus are having from week to week to week to week to tell you that the goalpost is moved. That was it. And you're dazed and confused with anxiety because you don't truly understand how the RV works. That's Iraq. Now, the private sector See, this is where a country's economy and their currency begins to move. Because through trade, as Goldilocks has always said, watch the water. When countries trade amongst each other without the control of the country, without the country controlling the rate of their currency, without the country depending on the US dollar, their currency can begin to move throughout the global markets, and through supply and demand, the markets will determine and revalue the rate of of each country's currency. So Iraq and Vietnam simultaneously are working to do the same thing at the same time. And to be honest with you, Vietnam is ahead of Iraq right now in a few different ways. However, Iraq is, once they gain accession to the World Trade Organization, it's full game for the Iraqi dinar. Iraq must, right now, what's happening, just so that you're aware, Iraq and Vietnam and several other countries, but I know mainly folks are only concerned or focused on Iraq and Vietnam. The central bank of Iraq controls the rate of the Iraqi dinar. The central bank of Vietnam controls the rate of the Vietnamese dong. But because they've been depending on the US dollar, their own currencies remained weak. They profit off of a low currency in the old system. But like as you just heard from the CBI themselves, Iraq has actually, they are commending Iraq for transitioning to the new trade finance system. They're commending Iraq for connecting to the new global banking system. Iraq is getting prepared just like Vietnam and every other country is getting prepared. But they have their own pace, their own race. There's not going to be a flip of the switch and all these countries' currencies in a fake basket of currencies, or all of a sudden the rates are all going to be there like you go Easter egg hunting and you got your Easter eggs all in a basket, all different colors, and you can all just pick and choose your candy. No, it don't work like that. This is why so many people have had anxiety and confused by and it makes me remember think of like, this is why so many people have gone into these banks, and unlike the success of Gratitude Z and many others, where she went in sharp, prepared, educated through Goldilocks, Wiley, and the questions he provides. People going into these banks, just like when I think of a baby, you have a little child, a little baby that can't even talk. They what they call it a goo goo gaga, baby talk. The baby trying to say something, but you can't understand it. You got folks going into these banks and saying stuff to the bankers, and the bankers can't understand it because they're not speaking their language. It's like guru gaga instead of goo goo gaga, it's guru gaga. So you're going in there with guru gaga. The bank's like, what the hell are you talking about? Let's call security and get you out of here and get you blacklisted because you don't know what you're talking about because you're listening to what the gurus are telling you. It's time to get away from the guru gaga. That don't make no sense. Now, my man Mike N, we are going to
Guru Gaga.
Guru Gaga. It's your fault. I knew you were going to laugh. All right. Now, we are going to get into my man Mike. I'm going to read this next one, and then is this not powerful what we're about to get into from Vietnam?
It's in black and white. It doesn't get any clearer. There hasn't been anything that's been right spot on where they are. I can't wait to get to it.
All right. I'm going to read this first one, and then we'll come to you. I just posted it to the room. Folks, this is what I want to share this with you because many of you probably heard us mention this on the call last Saturday, where on July the 2nd, when President Trump And remember, we got to go back to the first currency revaluation. It will be the priority of Trump's second administration because of the overvalued dollar. We need to weaken the dollar, folks. Weakening the dollars, and gold comes up to replace the dollar, just so that you're aware. So don't be freaked out. Don't get freaked out because of the weakening the dollar. But the head of the negotiations with Vietnam, we told you that when they spoke to President Trump on July the 2nd, they asked President Trump to please recognize us, meaning recognize us, Vietnam, as a market economy. We just read from the CBI regarding private sector and how Iraq wants to also be recognized as a market economy where the global markets determine the value of the Vietnamese dong and the Iraqi dinar. This is for every other country that wants to be set free. When a country has their sovereignty and independency, they no longer will have control over their currency to determine the rate. For the last 60 plus years, every country has controlled the value or the rate of their currency to their benefit, but to the detriment of the United States because they were using the US dollar. So if a country wants the United States to recognize them as a market economy, what they are truly saying is, in layman's terms, they want their currency to be revalued, because that's what would happen if they're designated as a market economy, especially in the new banking system whereby gold will back their own local currencies. So now, this is directly from Vietnam. It says on July the 2nd, Vietnam's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced the tariff agreement, noting that the United States president reaffirmed his administration's commitment to work with Vietnam on its issues affecting bilateral trade, especially in areas both sides prioritize. Folks, this was around the time. This was the same day that President Trump announced on Truth Social about the agreement, the trade agreement, the tariff agreement with Vietnam. It continues. Meanwhile, Tu Lam, which is the foreign minister for Vietnam, he urged the United States to promptly recognize Vietnam as a market economy and remove export restrictions on certain high-tech products. He asked President Trump. In fact, for those of you who may recall, last year, Vietnam wanted to become a market economy under the Biden administration, and the Biden administration shut them down. Rightfully so. They should have. Because bottom line, folks, Vietnam wanted to be recognized as a market economy last year, but without implementing their reforms. They were trying to do a two-step on the United States. And if it would have happened last year, they wouldn't have had no incentive to allow the Vietnamese dong to really go global. If the dong would have went global last year, if they would have recognized the economy, Vietnamese economy, as a market economy without reforms, it wouldn't have made a difference. But since then, they've implemented major reforms. Goldilocks shared those reforms back in May. And here in a minute, Sniper Mike is going to share it with you. So again, here we have July the 2nd, just 10 days ago. Vietnam asked President Trump to recognize them as a market economy, but Vietnam knew that there were things they had to do. And there were a lot of things that Vietnam has been doing, such as when it came to the United States, had all these agricultural and these farmers signing contracts and agreements with Vietnam to import into Vietnam. This is all a part of Vietnam saying, hey, look, Mr. President, look how serious we are about becoming a market economy. We're opening our market to you. And that's why President Trump in his post said the United States has full market access to the Vietnamese economy. But folks, The negotiations is not even complete. Although they said it was, it's not. They're still negotiating quietly. It's in writing. We have it. They're still not done, although they said they are. President Trump wants something from Vietnam in order to recognize them as a market economy. There are several things that we've shared in the last few Saturdays, but let's get into one of the major, if not probably the most powerful of what, and now I'm thinking about it. We're going to get into this, Mike, but yesterday there was a delegation of private companies. Now, I want you all to think of, I want you all to remember, you just heard about Iraq and private sector market economy out of Iraq. Remember these words: private sector, market economy. Remember these words: private sector, market economy. That's what Iraq wants. We just read, because that's what happened with the World Trade Organization and their accession. Private sector, market economy. Remember that. Remember that. Remember that. Because what you're going to hear from Mike here in a little bit. And then yesterday, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but yesterday, I'm just giving you guys a heads up. And I'm looking at this article. I'm not going to share it into the room. Just be on the lookout for the next couple of days from Goldilocks. There was a U.S. delegation of private companies that met in Vietnam yesterday. I'm going to name a few: Amazon, Apple, Abbott, Boeing, Brunswick, Citibank, ExxonMobil, Ford Motor Company, Google, IBM, Intel, Manulife, Meta, UPS, Warburg, Odgers, Bernstein, and Zulik Pharma. Some of those names you all may recognize. They all were in Vietnam. These are all private companies. They were all in Vietnam yesterday, meeting with Vietnamese officials. These are private companies. I told you, remember private sector, just like you heard with Iraq, connecting to the World Trade Organization, private sector, market economy. These companies were just in Vietnam yesterday. Private companies. I wonder why these private companies are all in Vietnam. You think they might be wanting to set up manufacturing shops? You think they're confident in the Vietnamese market? Stay tuned. All right. That was a little teaser, I guess, Sniper. Now let's get into this. Let's get into this right.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to read
a lot of what they do with the semiconductors and the companies that went down there just for the semiconductors that Goldilocks posted after this article here. It's the same powerhouse names that are listed in that one too. I mean, it's just even more.
Absolutely. I'm going to read the first elaboration on this, and then I would love for you, Sniper, to give us your summary on this article, and then you're going to read the whole article right after your summary. All right.
Okay. Did you want to repost my summary in there after, or did you want me to go back?
If you can grab it, please do. You grab it while I read this. All right, folks, and this is from Goldilocks. In a market economy, a country's private sector is the part of the economy that is not controlled by the government. It encompasses all businesses and organizations that are owned and operated by individuals and private groups for profit. Again, in a market economy, the private sector is the driving force behind the economic activity. It's where the most goods and services are produced and exchanged through forces of supply and demand. The government's role is generally limited. Why? Because, see, folks, when a country and their private sector is bustling, the government no longer has control when they allow the private sector to flourish. So like Goldilocks is saying, in a market economy, a country's private sector is the part of the economy that is not controlled by the government. See, folks, that's why the government controls, like in Vietnam, they've been controlling the Vietnamese dong's rate. But once there is a change and a shift where the government releases control, the private sector, which is the bustling part of the economy, allows that economy to flourish. Although it can flourish by the government controlling the value, like Vietnam has done. However, once Vietnam relinquishes control of the rate, the sky's the limit for the value of their currency through supply and demand. See, and I mentioned this a couple of days ago on the podcast, but the difference between a private sector and public sector is your government, like your town, your city, your village, wherever you live, your state, federal government, where there's no profit for them. Your government doesn't drive your economy because there's no profit in government. That's your EMS. That's your sewer department, water department, state agencies, so forth and so on. They don't drive the economy. This is, like I mentioned the other day, your private companies, such as your McDonald's, such as your Amazons, your Walmarts, your Googles, so forth and so on. All millions, billions of people that are employed that pay taxes in that government. That boosts the economy. They're spending money on goods and services in the grocery stores, driving on the highway, getting your speeding tickets. That's supporting the economy. But it's all, the government does not boost the economy. So when you heard all these different stories of how the rates of the dinar and every other currency, all these just make-up rates, all of a sudden are going to appear, but then they will tell you, oh, the in-ground assets in Iraq has all the oil and the diamonds and the gold, blah, 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 blah. And that's how the rate of the dinar is going to be so strong. Well, if that was the case, why is the rate 1,300 IQD right now? Because that is not how the rate is determined, by those in-ground assets, folks. Through trade, supply and demand, and open market, whereby the country no longer controls the value of the rate. You ready, my man Sniper?
Yes, sir.
If you can provide your summary, and then we're going to click on that link and we're going to read this whole powerful article from Vietnam. Like you said.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Floor is yours.
This article highlighted the private sector under Resolute 68. The private sector is named the new dawn, a turning point, and a core driver. They are setting up to give foreign investment a level playing field. And through this constitutional update, that they're going to let the private sector be free to show Washington they are indeed a market economy versus a social orientated market economy. The private sector would be to release it of such arbitrary goals and grant it the independence.
This is Mike's. This is his words, folks. This is not from the article. This young man earlier in the week read the article that Goldilocks provided. Dissect. That's why we call him the sniper. And this don't miss when he read this article. Back in May, Goldilocks reported on this, where Vietnam, for some of you that have been following Goldilocks, you may remember, it stated back in May, Vietnam went into it's called the National Assembly, which is the equivalent of our Congress. Well, you know how here in the United States, we have the House and we have the Senate. They were just battling out the budget to pass the big, beautiful bill. And they battle out spending bills and pass laws. The National Assembly is that equivalent in Vietnam. So in May, they went into a 90-day session of passing laws, 30 plus laws. They even amended their constitution. Vietnam did, because they knew they were going into these negotiations with President Trump over these tariffs. They knew there were certain things that they had to do, changes they had to make, reforms that they had to initiate in order to satisfy President Trump within these tariff negotiations. One of those 30 new laws that they passed is Resolution 68 regarding the private sector. Why do you think Google, Amazon, all these private companies are flocking into Vietnam now? Oh, there's another one. That reminds me, there's a private company called the Trump Companies that also broke ground a few months ago on their own $1.5 billion private company opportunity, golf course, hotel, resort. Now let's get on into this article directly from Vietnam. My man Sniper, and I'll read the headline title just in case. Reflecting on the Vietnam Communist Party's soliloquy to the private sector. And folks, right out the gate, the first sentence in the article from Vietnam says what, Sniper?
The private sector. I mean, it's getting ready to give it release. That's what it sounds like to me. Stand alone, be a driver. That market economy growth that they're looking for. That's going to dictate those rates.
So, folks, if you're following along, you can click the link in the post that we shared from Goldilocks. If you click the link, Mike, I want you to read. If you click the link, you're going to read that whole article.
Okay, no problem.
All right,
let's get started. If Resolution 68 is to be believed, state-owned enterprises are about to lose what remains of their special privileges.
Okay, pause. This is very important, folks. Listen to this. If Resolution 68, folks, this is a law regarding the private sector in Vietnam, where they are removing control of the access to the Vietnamese. Let me sort of preface it like this so you understand. For the last 50 plus years, Vietnam has had a total complete lock. Just think about it. Here in the United States, if a company wants to come into the United States and set up shop, they come in, they can get permits. They can set up shop and start a business. Boom, 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 boom. Pay a fee, boom, good to go. Not much red tape process. They may have to have some certifications, whatever it may be, whatever the process, whatever the line of business. It may take 30 days, 60 days, whatever it may be. In Vietnam, it may take, in fact, I remember seeing an article where it may take up to 3 years minimum to get a permit to start any type of business in Vietnam. 3 years. If it's not a Vietnamese company, if it is a foreign company, a company that is not from Vietnam, not in Vietnam, and you want to set up shop and start a business in Vietnam, you can count on at least 3 years to even get a response from the government of Vietnam to grant you the opportunity to even submit an application. Private companies didn't want to go, a lot of them didn't want to go near Vietnam. Although the labor is very cheap. You have companies that are there that may have started 20, 30 years ago. But new companies wanting to come into Vietnam, they wouldn't do it because they couldn't. Vietnam shut out the world from coming into Vietnam because Vietnam, it's a culture, a socialist economy. It's like a mini China. But with this new law that the higher court passed, Resolution 68, it says if it's to be believed, state-owned enterprises, this is the government of Vietnam, are about to lose what remains of their special privileges. What's their special privileges? Control of the Vietnamese market. This resolution for the private sector takes away the control and the power from the government and gives it back to the people. Literally, there's even articles that talks about within Vietnam, from Vietnam, where it talks about a complete shift, mindset shift to the Vietnamese people, whereby even the high court in Vietnam, they created a delegation that goes throughout the whole entire country of Vietnam, and every single state agency now has been trained on a whole new psychological process to be receptive to private companies. They basically have told their people, we are no longer controlling your minds. We're no longer controlling the process for private companies to come into our country. And then they even have penalties to the Vietnamese government employees that if they take too long to give a company a permit, they might lose their job. So they went from you can take forever, 3 years to even reply to somebody, to you better respond immediately to giving a company a permit to come into our country. A total complete shift. Private sector. Okay, in early May. Go ahead, young man.
Yep. In early May, the Politburo of Vietnam Communist Party issued a new resolution on private sector development. It was one of 4 resolutions issued by Hanoi leadership that General Secretary To Lam has billed as pillars intended to help the country advance.
Okay, 1 second. This is very, very, very important. Watch this. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. It says in early May, the Politburo, this is the high court of the Vietnamese Communist Party, issued a new resolution on private sector development. It was one of 4 resolutions issued by Vietnam's leadership that General Secretary To Lam has billed as pillars intended to help the country advance. It's important to know, well, who is General Secretary To Lam? Well, let's go right back to it. Mike, I'm gonna need your help. Okay. I'm going to. You see that screenshot right above that article where my red arrow?
Yes.
If you can read that real quick, folks, remember, To Lam, he's in charge of these negotiations and turning Vietnam opening them up to the world for a market economy so the Dong can be set free. Go ahead and read that real quick, my good man.
Yeah. Lam urged the U.S. to promptly recognize Vietnam as a market economy.
Read from the top on July 2nd.
July 2nd? Okay.
Yeah.
On July 2nd, Vietnam's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced the tariff agreement, noting that the U.S. president reaffirms his administration commitment to work with Vietnam on issues affecting bilateral trade, especially in areas on both sides that prioritize. Meanwhile, To Lam urged the U.S. to promptly recognize Vietnam as a market
economy. Mm-hmm. To Lam, this is the person who got on the phone with President Trump and agreed on July 2nd to the new tariff agreements. This person, To Lam, or To Lam, however you want to call him, speaking to President Trump, saying, President Trump, please promptly recognize us as a market economy. And then we have right here in this article, it tells you that this man, too long, it says in early May, the Politburo of the Vietnamese Communist Party issued a new resolution on private sector development. It was one of 4 resolutions issued by Vietnam's leadership, General Secretary Tu Lam, the man who called President Trump. Okay, continue. For those desiring a new wave, go ahead.
Okay. For those desiring a new wave of reforms, they can unlock Vietnam's next economic growth phase. Resolution 68 was heralded as an important policy document and even a new dawn. It goes further than the BCP has previously gone to recognize the key role of the private sector in Vietnam's economic growth trajectory, some have argued.
Private sector, market economy. Remember, we just talked about this. We're Iraq, Goldilocks shared. This is what Iraq is in the process of doing. Vietnam, same thing. Go ahead.
Okay. One local law firm told clients that Resolution 68 marks a turning point. The private sector is no longer seen as a supporting actor. It is now positioned as a core driver for Vietnam's socialist-oriented market economy. Another local law firm said the resolution marks a significant shift in mindset, positioning the private sector not just as supplement to the private sector, but a vital component to the country's overall economic structure.
Powerful. So this is 2 law firms within Vietnam stating one local law firm told clients that Resolution 68 marks a turning point. The private sector is no longer seen as a supporting actor. It is now positioned as a core driver for Vietnam's socialist-oriented market economy. And another law firm said Resolution 68, this is powerful, marks a significant shift in mindset, positioning the private sector not just as the supplement of the public sector. So now the private sector, do you understand why Amazon, Google, all them, Boeing were in Vietnam yesterday with all those companies I just rattled off? Do you understand why the farmers, where Vietnam came into the United States and signed agreements with the state of Iowa's farmers in Ohio, farmers in Kansas and Maryland, opening up their economy to farmers and other private companies around the world? This marks a significant shift in mindset. What Vietnam is doing, they're letting the whole government agencies, the whole entire country know change is on the way. This Resolution 68 is a mind shift change, significant shift in mindset to open up our private sector, meaning Vietnam now is allowing themselves to become vulnerable to other countries where people may come in to think of watering down their culture. This is one thing of strong culture belief systems to not allow anyone come in. That's what they've been like for so long. But this Resolution 68 says, well, any and everybody can come on into our country because we have a total complete shift in our mindset now. Go ahead, young man. To be clear, go ahead.
Yep. To be clear, the document was issued by the VCP and not by a state body per se. However, the government apparatus, supported by various VCP affiliated organizations, is now tasked with turning the spirit of the resolution, couched in the slightly hyperbolic and yet laden Hanoi speak of VCP, into tangible actions that bring about impactful results.
What this is saying, folks, is the government apparatus supported by the various VCP. This is their socialist party. Affiliate organization is now tasked with turning the spirit of the resolution, couched in the slightly hyperbolic and yet latent Hanoi speak. So basically what this is saying is this socialist power structure is now responsible for taking this new resolution for the private sector and from the top down, trickle down to all of the state agencies that they've controlled for so long. the whole entire government and the masses of the people that they've controlled through socialist thought process for so long, that same power structure is now responsible for taking the private sector resolution and saying to those people, there's a new mindset, folks. We're going to change. We're going to allow these private companies from all over the world to come into our country and set up shop, because we're now in negotiations with President Trump over these tariff negotiations, because we want something from President Trump. We want a market economy. Good, young man.
Yep. Given that various arms of the government have been working to catalyze and nurture the private sector in Vietnam for well over 3 decades, albeit with mixed success, why did the VCP feel the need to issue such a resolution, and whom is it addressed?
So it's saying now, why did this most powerful party, this most powerful socialist type of power structure, why are they changing now? Why did they push this resolution 68, to a private sector, which will move them to a market economy? Why do they feel a need to do this? Go, young man.
Yeah. Some might argue that is part of Vietnam's bid to convince the United States Department of Commerce that Vietnam is indeed a market economy at the time when it is issued. That I'll say that one more time. Some might argue that this is a part of Vietnam's bid to convince the United States Department of Commerce that Vietnam is indeed a market economy at the time when the issues of trade and tariffs are at the top of the economic agenda.
At the time that what?
Tariffs at the time the issue trade.
Oh, really? So this is saying that the most powerful force, the most powerful political party, most powerful political structure in Vietnam, they may be doing this because this resolution 68 that they passed into law is to convince the United States Department of Commerce that Vietnam is a market economy at a time when trade and tariffs are at the top of the economic agenda. Does that not tell you in black and white why they passed this resolution? Because they want the Department of Commerce. And folks, for those of you who don't know, it's the Department of Commerce that designates a country a market economy. So it will have to come from the Department of Commerce. Last year, when Sleepy Joe was in office, it was the Department of Commerce that Vietnam was trying to go through to get the designation as a market economy. So here we are, full circle, almost a year later. And they're passing this resolution, this new law, this mindset shift, because they want to be recognized as a market economy. Go ahead, young man.
Yep. As recently as August 2024, Washington reconfirmed that it deems Vietnam to be a non-market economy, a status currently held by a dozen countries, which has ramifications for the United States assets or duties of Vietnam's exports and any accusations of dumping.
And this has been resolved. 1 second, beloved. This has been resolved. This is saying as of 2024. Remember, this was last year. As of August 2024, it says Washington reconfirmed that it deems Vietnam as a non-market economy. So this is when last year in August, when the United States said, no, we're not giving you market economy status. You're a non-market economy status, Vietnam. And then it talked about the anti-dumping duties. Well, Vietnam just addressed all of that in the tariff agreements. They just solved all of that in these recent tariff negotiations. Go ahead. The Commerce Department noted.
Yep. The Commerce Department noted that despite recent reforms efforts, the government's extensive involvement in the economy distorts Vietnam's prices and costs.
This is very important. This is talking about as of August of last year, folks. The United States Department of Commerce noted that despite recent reforms, meaning reforms last year that Vietnam implemented, the government, meaning Vietnam's extensive involvement in the economy, distorts Vietnamese prices and cost. And yes, that will include prices that are effectively connected to the value of the Vietnamese dong. So this is talking about the reforms that they made last year wasn't enough. and that Vietnam's extensive involvement. Remember, the very first sentence said in Resolution 68, if it's to be believed, state-owned enterprises are about to lose what remains of their special privileges. That's that control and that involvement in the economy that Vietnam once had. It's going away. Go, young man, to be clear.
To be clear? Or you want me to go and is it certain? Certainly true.
I'm sorry. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. It is certainly true that Vietnamese government direct ownership of numerous state-owned enterprises and its degree of control over a raft of businesses, resources, and legal issues of Vietnam's pre-1990s command economy past.
Mm-hmm.
It is also true that until now, the most commercially successful element of the private sector has been foreign investment, part of it, albeit with a few exceptions that prove the rule. The degree of success has had over the last 40 years in attracting foreign direct investments has not been mirrored in developing a more homegrown, non-state owned sector.
Boom. So what it's saying is the degree of success in Vietnam over the last 40 years, basically the private sector, it's been weak because everything has been controlled within. They're keeping everything in house. But as you'll be hearing in the next couple of days, like I just read to you a little bit ago, all those major private corporations that were in Vietnam yesterday, Amazon, Google, UPS, so forth and so on. Trump's private company, but folks, I'm talking about these companies that I mentioned, Meta. These are billions and billions in dollars, millions in jobs that will be created in Vietnam. Just think, all of that, especially with the new trade negotiations that we're expecting, with tariff negotiations that we're expecting. These private companies, all of this, all of the transactions, all of the ramifications will be in the Vietnamese dong. Oh, so this is where supply and demand comes in? Absolutely. So trade on the water with all these tariffs through Vietnamese dong, that's where your value of your dong comes into play. Go, young man. You can continue.
Yep. State-owned enterprises and the governments that own them have been partly to blame by crowding out private sector rivals in some sectors.
Mm-hmm.
But they are by no means the only culprits. It is widely recognized that the enabling government environment for private companies to flourish and attain the economies of scale necessary to compete effectively has not been wholly conducive, more like passive aggressive.
So what it's saying is, folks, is that it was widely recognized that the enabling environment, meaning the government, enabled the environment to keep the private sector and private businesses out. This was intentional. But this Resolution 68 completely removes that. Go ahead.
If Resolution 68 is to be believed, state-owned enterprises are about to lose what remains in their special privileges,
which is power and control. They're about to lose power.
That one.
Huh?
They doubled down on that.
They doubled down. They repeated it again. You caught that. You caught that. And those special privileges, folks, enabled the government. If you wanted to, if Google, Amazon, UPS, whatever these major multi-billion-dollar corporations wanted to come into Vietnam, they couldn't. The red tape was ridiculous. For lack of a better term, it would take an active Congress to be able to go in Vietnam and set up shop as a private business. But this is what boosts an economy, private business. And through trade, this is what boosts the currency. Now, Vietnam's boost in their economy, fastest growing in the last 20 plus years, is because they've been able to take advantage of the trade surplus, the trade with the United States. But this is why the tariffs that Trump is putting on them and these deals with all these other countries, that's why it's so important. It turns this all around in favor of whoever owns these currencies. Go ahead, young man. You can continue.
Yep. Nonetheless, old habits die hard, and an echo of the command economy days, the resolution sets various aspirational targets for the private sector development by 2030, such as doubling the number of private sector firms, having 20 such firms for every 1,000 citizens, its contribution to GDP and the labor force. The list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
The leadership's somewhat romantic fondness for small and medium-sized enterprises persists, even through what Vietnam really needs is a cadre of large private sector firms that can take on state-owned enterprises and foreign investment firms at their own game, rather than having to negotiate a route around them.
Boom. So now this means whereas these private companies, these private sector firms that can take on state-owned enterprises, all these major private companies I just mentioned, they're there now. They were there. They negotiating deals to go into Vietnam, to take over, so that the state-owned, meaning the Vietnamese-controlled enterprises, they get out of the way. They won't be a part of the game anymore. They will have their own game. Go ahead, young man. The biggest gift.
The biggest gift that Hanoi's leadership could give the private sector would be to release it as such arbitrary goals and grant it independence to be on and commercially successful by focusing on leveraging and the capabilities and expertise that lie within Vietnam's firms. If the party now loves the private sector, then let it go.
They got straight to it when they said that. If the party, meaning if the power structure in Vietnam now loves the private sector so much, then let it go. So meaning, come on, Google, come on, Amazon, come on. And also, folks, they're not just doing that. Remember, many of these companies, these private companies that are over there in Vietnam right now negotiating, they're U.S. companies connected to President Trump. Not just President Trump, but these are many of them are United States companies that I just rattled off. Private sector. Just imagine all those companies, your Walmarts, your UPS, Googles, Amazon, so forth and so on, the products that will be shipped, imported into Vietnam from the United States and all over the world. Imagine those products, folks, are shipped on the water. I'm going to read them. Abbott, Amazon, Apple, Boeing, Brunswick, Citibank, ExxonMobil, Ford, Google, IBM, Intel, semiconductors, Manulife, Meta, UPS, Warburg, Argers, and Zulik. Think of those companies. You heard of Google, Ford, you heard of Boeing, you heard of Apple, Amazon. Those are billions in products, all shipped on the water. These deals will be going to Vietnam. This is through trade. And right now, they're in the midst of negotiating trade and tariff deals with President Trump. Go ahead, young man. You can continue.
Yep. This year is expected to see Vietnam refresh its national constitution, something that the country does every decade or so, understandably. Most attention is on governance aspects of the Constitution, particularly in the light of changes being made at the national and provincial levels of government.
One second, beloved. Okay. The national and provincial levels of government, folks, what that is, the national means countrywide at the highest level within Vietnam. Provincial is down in the trenches. So think of the national level where changes are being made within the national and provincial levels of government. National level means, like, let's say, would be the equivalent of our federal government. Provincial is like your local town and villages. That's down in the rural areas, in the trenches. So this is a top-down change within their government when it mentions the national and provincial levels. Go ahead.
Yep. But there are also maybe some changes in those parts that are pertinent to the economy. As a mindset changes and initialed in Resolute 68 begin to sit uncomfortably with some of the articles in the Constitution.
Mindset changes. Now, then it hits on some of those changes and the challenges next, which I'm sure President Trump is aware of, and he wants to see some changes on this, what Mike is about to read. Go ahead, Sniper.
For example, Article 51 of the Constitution declares that Vietnamese economy is a socialist-oriented market economy with multi forms of ownership and multi-sectors of economic structure that state economic sector play the leading role.
So it's in their Constitution, Article 58, that Vietnam will maintain control of certain power structures in Vietnam. That's a part of their Constitution. I'm sure that is going to have to change. But they're already making every other step. They've already made steps and changes to their Constitution and already to where it will drown this out. But this is just mentioning it. Okay. In some ways.
In some ways, Resolution 68 has the feel of soliloquy to the private sector by the VCP, as if seeking to convince itself as much as anyone else, whether domestic or foreign, that Vietnam's future economic prospects will be function of success of private sector development. Given the recent spat of high-profile scandals in the corporate and banking sectors, maybe Hanoi feels a need to renew its vows to the market economy, however socialist orientated.
Yeah, so they want to be a market economy so bad, rightfully so, but they still want to kind of hold on to a little bit of control. That's like it says, hard habits die hard. So they want to be recognized as a market economy. President Trump recognizes as a market economy, but they still want to hold on to just a little bit of that control. It's like some of you, if you ever been in a relationship before, and it's like you want to quit that person, you want to kick them to the curb, but you still want to hang on to them for just a little bit longer instead of completely let them go. That's what Vietnam is trying to do. They want a total, complete market economy, but they still want to hang on to their old ways a little bit. And this is why we know President Trump ain't having it. That's why he's a master negotiator. He's gonna get all of what he wants. Go ahead, young man. As to whether, go ahead.
Yep. As to whether Resolution 68 will be sufficient to convince the U.S. administration that today's Vietnam is indeed a market economy, it is conceivable that Washington will be looking to see what changes are made to the wording of the Constitution, including references in Article 4 to the VCP employing Marxist-Leninist doctrine and Ho Chi Minh's thoughts. I might have messed that name up, but
that's all right. That's all right. I would have Swiss cheesed it up too. So in essence, folks, in summary, what it's saying is, as to whether Resolution 68 will be sufficient to convince. So this is saying is that they're expecting that this change in their Constitution may convince President Trump to recognize Vietnam as a market economy. See, and Vietnam is doing it. They've done a lot. So change their constitutions. They've allowed these companies to come in, removing red tape. In fact, just so that you're aware, folks, Vietnam even passed a part of their 38 laws that they passed in the last 90 days that all went live July 1st. One of those laws even included for these private companies, whereby 2 years of tax-free income for the employees of these private companies that will now come into Vietnam, and a 4 years tax exemption for the companies, for the private sector companies. So this is something that that we're aware of, but it's too much to include into the podcast. But these private companies that will now set up shop and go and do business in Vietnam, they will operate for the first 4 years, tax-free income. Not only that's for the companies, the private sector companies, then the employees won't pay taxes for their first 2 years in business of working at these companies. Just think about it. Vietnam has offered tax exemptions, other caveats to allow these companies to say, come in. No wonder why Amazon, Google, or rest of all these private sector companies going into Vietnam to set up shop. 4 years of tax-free, tax exempt to all the profit. You just all profit in Vietnam as a business. They're doing everything to bring these companies, these private sector companies, into Vietnam. Does all this make sense to you? What's your summary now, Sniper, after all this?
They're stepping out of the market and allowing the economy to really grow, and allowing companies to really scale there. They've always had a hand on what's going on, and they've always done it based on what they felt was beneficial for them. Right. But they're not doing that anymore. They changed it up. They're allowing this digital economy to advance through this Resolution 68 to be able to change what it is, to be transparent and have basically a free fall in their vicinity using what they have to offer.
Right. Exactly. And it's amazing because, folks, if you understand this, as a market economy, this is they want it bad, and they want and this is, I know Trump is holding his, for lack of a better term, his Trump card. He's holding back because he's a master negotiator. He knows what Vietnam wants, but he wants Vietnam to completely let go control, so that and with doing so, the market forces, through supply and demand, through trade, will determine the value of the Vietnamese dong. The markets are already reacting to the announced trade deals with Vietnam, although the deal isn't finalized. The markets are already reacting, meaning the Vietnamese dong is reacting. So the best is only yet to come once these negotiations. See, and also, as a reminder, folks, everything is connected to everything. Vietnam is connected to Iraq. Iraq is connected to Vietnam. Iraq is connected to Russia. Vietnam is connected to India. All these countries through trade are connected to each other. They're connected to the UK, to Canada. All these countries, all these tariff negotiations and these trade deals that President Trump is negotiating, they all play a role that will factor into the value of the dong and the dinar and every other country and their currencies. They're all connected. It's not a monolith where, see, and I know. That's why some people, they only care about what they hear about the Iraq. They may only care about what they hear about Vietnam, and that's it. Not realizing you got to understand the totality of what's happening with these trade deals, because they ultimately affect the dinar, they ultimately affect the dong, so forth and so on. Gratitude Z, if you can unmute.
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay.
Were you following along?
Yes.
Does all this make sense to you?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. What's your feedback?
Oh my gosh, feedback.
I was gonna put you on the spot. Just whatever comes to mind. It could be a question.
Talking about Vietnam and the trade, I wasn't aware of how their system worked, and it's very exciting that this is all going on. I don't know what else to say. It's
That's okay. Let me help you. Where you saw how how Tu Lam, the person that called President Trump and negotiated the tariff agreement that was announced on July 1st, you see, is the same person that is in charge of the mind shift change in the whole entire country of Vietnam. And he's the not by title but power. He's the President Trump of Vietnam.
There you go.
You know, and facilitating the mindset shift in Vietnam and all these private companies. Folks, in the next couple of days, you're going to see some stuff, some articles coming out from Goldilocks that's going to further elaborate on a lot of this. That's what's happening in Vietnam, but it's phenomenal. I know Gratitude Z and also Sniper. I know that both of you are glad that you've already began the process. You've already established your relationships. Well, Sniper, he communicates with his wealth manager literally every day. Well, more than one of them. And that's another thing. Gratitude Z. It's amazing how your wealth manager brought up foreign currency to you right out the gate. And then Sniper and his, I'm not sure if you're probably not aware of Gratitude Z, but Mike's wealth manager, they communicate by text or email literally every day and openly about foreign currency.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. He's shared some of that with me in confidence. Gratitude Z, the communication.
It's I wish I feel like I should have said something to him, but
no,
it just wasn't.
You got nothing but time. That's okay.
I was so conditioned listening to you guys. Don't say anything.
Yep. But now you
find him a little bit.
She sure is. But you see how you're more prepared now, Gratitude Z, for your next meeting.
Absolutely, I am, and even more prepared now after talking to you guys tonight.
There you go. All right. Excellent. All right, beautiful folks. We made great time. Is there anything, Sniper or Gratitude Z, anything you guys want to share to take us home, get us out of here?
I'll say this one last thing. You just said just so that way we can all get out of here and enjoy our weekend. If you have been paying attention to what's been going on since July, the fireworks haven't stopped on the 4th of July. It's been consistent. And what's been being put out by these countries, what's been being put out here in the United States, with some of the things that we're looking at as well, it is unfolding, and it's consistent daily fireworks. If you're not set up with the wealth manager, or if you have not started the process, I would ask that you please really reconsider what you're doing, because these countries are telling you what they're doing. They're not hesitating. And they're putting it in writing.
Exactly. Amazing. And folks, anyone listening, just so you know, the relationship that Mike has established, it took him a while. And so don't compare to him. Also, with Gratitude Z in her situation, where both managers open up to her, that may not be your situation. Everyone has their own journey, their own path. Just follow the steps. There are simple 8 steps. Don't skip them. Don't try to rush to the end result, and definitely do not compare your experience with anyone else. Everyone has their own unique story, their own unique journey. You'll ultimately get to the destination just like everyone else. So there's no rush. No need to be flustered. No need to have the anxiety and the guru gaga talk. You don't need all that. Make sure you make sure that you just stay grounded, and we will show you the way. All right, everyone. Have a beautiful night. Be safe. Be kind. Stay in love. Everyone have a good night. Take care. Ciao.
Have a good night.
All right.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR, brought to you by Freedom Fighter.